Hello, fans and assorted stalkers, and welcome to the Moon, and, well, RPG Maker story game, or adventure game, yeah, that's the word. Like, it's actually, like, surprisingly good. I mean, like, you could do a lot with RPG Maker, like, RPG Maker is actually somewhat of a limited engine, but you can still do a lot with it, although there have actually been a lot of, like, RPG Maker games that aren't RPGs, ironically enough, although this is one of the few I've seen that's, well, not a horror game, and honestly, like, it costs like $10 and it's well worth the money. Let's just get into it now, shall we? You know, the environments are actually really well designed. Of course, there are the limitations of the engine, but even without that, it looks really good. I mean, admittedly, these... Oh, well, that's unfortunate. But, like, these games actually remind me of some, like the old Final Fantasy games, particularly, like, their remakes. Yeah, it's interesting in, well, the fact that it's actually a point-and-click adventure game made in RPG Maker. Like, you are actually able to move using the arrow keys, but, well, it's designed for the mouse, and honestly works better that way most of the time. Like, there are definitely a couple points where, like, the pathfinding from the, well, click to move, quite simply works wrong. Like, it works like most, like, adventure games. Like, it doesn't look terrible, especially with the right person working on it, but still looks good in my opinion. Ma! They're here! Yeah, we're here to do the stuff with the things. I don't want to play too much of this game since, well, it's almost entirely story. Like, there's one puzzle mechanic, but, well, it's not exactly very substantial. Honestly, it's just a way to, well, modulate the pacing. Definitely some good pacing, too. Like, things never seem to go, like, too slow or too fast, and like, admittedly, those puzzles have a thing to do with that, but I'll talk about that later. Like, seriously, the design here is really good. Like, the character designs as well, like, making each character, like, distinctive and unique, but like, since last time I picked Dr. Rosalind to search the house, I'll go and pick Dr. Watt. Since, well, it only, like, that choice only determines, like, who you play as during, like, this first section. Like, the majority of the game, you just switch in between the two at seeming random. Okay, so now we're going around the house to learn a bit more about Johnny, and, well, let's talk to these kids, why don't we? I said kids, talk to the motherfucking kid. What you want? Yeah, show me around the house. Hey, your mom told me. Hey, your mom told you to show me around the house. Okay, maybe we will. Maybe. I think we did a little convincing, that's all. What do you think, Tommy? Yeah. Alright, let's talk. What do you punks want? Alright. $1 trillion! What the candy cane mom hides from us? Same thing, really. Yeah, all that. What? There's a giant candy cane on the high shelf that we can't reach. It's in the kitchen. Ma put it there safe for when we do chores. Get it for us and we'll give you a tour to the house. What do you say? Well, no, cut the crap and help. Plotting to eat stashed candy is a serious crime, you know. I heard you can get 6 years for that. Oh no, what do we do, sis? I'm sorry, we didn't know. Oh god. Children. Uh-huh. Well, if you show me around this place now, I'll keep my mouth shut. Really? You do that for us? Sure, I'm feeling nice today. Woo, thanks! Yeah, we'll help. My voice keeps changing for that, but... So yeah, this game actually has a bit of, like, special significance. Wait, have I been to that room? I don't remember being to this room. Oh, this is another bathroom. Click! But anyway. So, one of the major characters in this game is autistic. Like, Johnny's currently deceased wife is, well, actually autistic, like, canonically. She is diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, but, well, that's essentially the old name for autism. Her name is River, so River was diagnosed before the diagnosis changed twice. Like, I'm actually not that, like, disappointed that Asperger's is no longer a separate diagnosis from autism and that it's just diagnosed as a blanket autism spectrum disorder, because, let's be perfectly honest, people kept trying way too hard to instill some type of Aspian superiority in me. But, so, anyway, downstairs! The door is locked. Opened it with room key. It's like a cave in here. And a click, and a shit ton of bunnies. And a platypus. Like, before you say anything, like, I know, like, on first glance, at least to me, it seems like they were, well, demonizing special interests, and hey, platypuses are awesome. Like, I assure you, like, these bunnies have nothing to do with special interests, and River's special interest is actually something entirely different, so... But anyway, as far as, like, autism stories go, it's actually done fairly well. Like, there tends to be not much, like, autistic representation or disability representation in general, but, like, I have personal connection to autism representation, so I'll talk about that. Essentially, like, there are a lot of mistakes, let's say, that writers go through when, well, writing autistic characters beyond, like, for one, turning them into essentially a list of symptoms rather than character, not to mention the whole, like, tragedy narrative. Like, supposed, like, disability or autism allies don't tend to be as good as they really should. I mean, hell, Autism Speaks is the most recognized autism charity, and it's, well, it's a piece of shit. Like, seriously, fuck Autism Speaks. Like, this author actually did really well with autistic representation. River herself is actually a fairly, like, good character. Not only is River a complex character, but honestly, it seems like he went to, like, you know, actual autistic people when, like, constructing her character. There are actually two autistic characters, like, River and her friend Isabel. Like, Isabel isn't as fleshed out as River, but honestly, just the fact that there are two autistic characters compare and contrast one another, like, that puts it leagues ahead of, like, a lot of, like, other, like, portrayals of autism. Like, they both, like, approach it in their autism in different ways. Like, admittedly, like, a lot of Isabel's purpose, like, I'll get to her later, but she essentially is there to, well, educate, like, John, but really the viewer, on autism. I mean, she does also, as I've said, has a purpose of, well, contrasting with River, because autistic people can be pretty damn diverse. But the cactus? What the cactus? What the cactus were you doing? Burning ants with a magnifying glass. I am their god! Using moonlight. Okay, I'm taking a nap then. God, it's so hard to be a smartass nowadays. Like, the interesting thing is that the proceeds actually go to autism charities. Like, the one last I checked that half the proceeds are going to now is actually ASAN, which, out of all the charities, that's probably the best one right now. Like, the ASAN isn't, like, it's essentially an advocacy organization for autistic people. Like, think HRC or NAACP, essentially, but for autistic people. Oh yeah, I should probably mention I'm autistic myself, you know, just to get that, you know, unambiguous. Yeah, last accessible memory, disable speech except for Johnny, and let's go talk to him and shit. Yes, yes. Like, so yeah, I'm autistic, hence why my personal connection to the game, like, was probably obvious, but, you know, I don't want ambiguity in. Like, there's one misconception I don't want to get. It's about whether to refer to autistic people as autistic people or people with autism. And it, like, in general, like, the accepted term is autistic people, at least used by the autistic community. Like, there are probably some that prefer person with autism, but, well, like, take that on a case-by-case basis, but in general, presume autistic people is, well, the default, because it essentially is. Like, 9 times out of 10, if you refer to someone as an autistic person, they won't get mad, but, like, what kind of annoys me is that I've seen, like, a couple of, like, allies, like, kind of police language, saying that don't refer to them as an autistic person, but as a person with autism, which, honestly, to me, that's like calling a gay person a person with gay. Yeah, sounds a bit weird when I do it like that, because... So, yeah, the basic of this scene is, essentially, we're talking to, well, Johnny's last memory in order to essentially get his cooperation in order to fulfill his wish, since what we're doing is we're essentially traveling through his memories, like backwards through his memories. So our goal is to get to his childhood and make that child want to go to a mood, and then have the device create, well, essentially a new life based on that desire. It's a simulated life, but well, feels real to him and lets people live unfulfilled dreams, essentially. So anyway, back to autism. Like, autistic allies, as much as I hate to say it, tend to kind of suck. Like, they're good ones, and I don't want to discredit them from the situation, but like, it seems like the autistic allies and actual autistic people's goals seem just diametrically opposed. Like, autistic people tend to not want to cure, allies tend to want to cure. Like, yeah, I know there are some people who want to cure their autism, but, well, there are also some people who want to cure their gayness. Like, honestly, the main issue with being, like, disabled, or, well, being autistic, isn't so much, like, it's not so much the autism itself, but rather a world built that doesn't really give a shit about people with autism. Like, they give a shit about the neurotypicals, but, well, they don't really give a shit about autism. Although, like, admittedly, how people conceptualize their own disability depends a lot on whether they were born with it, or whether it happened to them. Like, war amputees I have all the sympathy for, but it's not the amputation itself, but the sudden forced change in lifestyle that's really the issue. Essentially, a person having to give up their old life in order to live a new one they didn't necessarily want. I was born by autism. I've always been autistic, and because of that, I don't want a fucking cure. Like, yeah, my autism has had struggles, but honestly, biggest struggles more come from, like, society's expectations of social interaction. Yeah, you're probably reading that while I was rambling. Essentially, we have to prepare a memento. It's a puzzle, which, like, it's not exactly the most complicated of puzzles, but it does modulate the pacing nice enough. Like, I'm gonna be talking about autism this whole fucking video, but yeah, a lot of white rabbits. That is absolutely unrelated to any type of special interest. If that's what you're worried about, which I honestly kind of was, but despite the good things I've heard, but I assure you, nothing to do with special interest. Like, this game actually has... Ow, that's a memento, so... Like, this game actually has really good characterization. When also you're collecting, like, a bunch of orbs by interacting with objects in order to go through the memento and travel further back in time. Like, I'd actually argue that Johnny is the main character of this game, like, especially since you're literally going through his life story backwards. That's certainly an interesting, like, way of going about things, especially as you essentially learn more and more as you go, well, backwards. After we pay for your operation, we'll have just enough left, so don't you worry. White lie. That's what you call it, right? No, I'm trying to just... Stop it. I don't like it when you lie. I calculated our finances. I know how it's like. Why do you try and convince me against my will? We need money for your medical bills, River! I understand that Auntie means a lot to you, but this is just too much! I mean, she isn't even... Do you know what makes me happy, Johnny? What? Do you? Well, I do. I just hope you can help me with it. River? When the papers for my treatments get here, I will not sign them. What you can do with our money is up to you. But if you would grant my wish, I want you to use it to finish building that house. And then for every day that you live there, I want you to watch over her. Visit her, speak to her, comfort her. I don't want her to be alone anymore. And what about you? Happy. I'll be happy. Johnny? Yes? I made this. Tell me what it is. What? Just tell me what it is. It's a rabbit like all the others you made. What else? It's made of paper. What else? Its body's yellow and the rest is blue. Good. What else? Look, River. I wrote a song. It's for you. Okay. Well, would you like to hear it? Yes. She's definitely written like an autistic person. You didn't have to bring the piano here for this. I think you're just fine with the door open. It's called For River. Why so cliché? It's just a placeholder. Yeah, here we go to the construction of, well, the house. Yo, Johnny. Nick Colton said I should come. I brought you pickled olives. They're your favorite, right? Oh, pickled olives. Yeah, I heard about River. Will she be okay? The illness was just diagnosed in its late stage. Fortunately, it's treatable. For the medical bills. We can't afford to finish building this house, Isabel. That is one of my issues with, well, the American medical system. Like, it's just its cost. Like there's someone close to me, I won't say who well, actually it's a chronic illness, which is, yeah, the medical bills, even with insurance, cost $300,000. Remember, with insurance. Like, the insurance is paid like a couple $1 million. Like, holy shit! This much money just to make sure that someone doesn't die. Like, what the hell? We can barely afford to pay for her treatment. I'm just relieved that she'll be okay, but you don't know how much this place means to her. She's going to be heartbroken. What are you going to do now? I'm going to tell her that we can make it. I'm going to tell her that we can afford everything. I don't want her to do anything crazy. You shouldn't lie to her. Don't understand, Isabel. If she found out, I'm not sure which she'd choose. So what? If she chooses not to save herself for the sake of this place, then so be it. If that's what she really wants. I really dislike when you neurotypicals think you know what's best for others. Ah yes, neurotypical. That's, like, it's phrases like that essentially make me confident that, well, essentially the writer went to, like, autistic people to essentially have a bit of help writing the story and making sure that, you know, he didn't fall into some pitfalls. Like, neurotypical is actually typically a word you hear essentially in the autistic community. Essentially derived as a way to describe the majority in terms of, well, brain structure. Or brain wiring, I suppose. You know, other than normal, which, considering the fact that not normal, it can be used as an insult. Yeah, calling, like, neurotypicals the normal ones doesn't exactly have the best connotations. Like, neurotypical is similar to cisgender in the way, you know, rather than describing it as the normal gender, or the normal brain type, it essentially became, like, another adjective. Like, it means the same thing, but doesn't have the, well, same connotations. And as I've mentioned, Isabelle is the second autistic character in this game. And she's essentially kind of the, well, civil rights fighter of the two. That's definitely a good addition. Like, admittedly, some of her writing can get a bit forced and awkward, but never too terrible, and, well, at the very least, it educates people about autism, since there's a lot of fucking misconceptions. I hate when you call me that, Izzy. Yeah, I don't care. You think this is all about her? What about me, Isabelle? After all these years, am I not allowed to be selfish even once? I don't want to be alone, Isabelle. I'm not going to let her die. That's arrogant. I don't care. Where are you going? I'm going to pick something from the clip to bring back to her. It'll at least give her some comfort. That doesn't make what you're doing any less wrong. Nick wanted me to give you this. Like, the music in this game is also really good. Like, very pretty. Like, anyway, the characterization is actually very strong. Like, whether you agree or disagree with John's actions, you at least understand where he's coming from. Like, dealing with the death of your wife, especially one that could be prevented, is not pleasant. Yeah, no one wants to be alone, especially since, oh, they're not exactly youngins. You know what I'm saying. Like, that's the thing. If you're gonna have your characters engage in, like, morally dubious behavior, at the very least, have a reason why. Like, there, you gotta get their motivation in order, because, well, if you don't, they just seem like jackasses for the sake of being jackasses. But as for Johnny, like, whether or not his, like, actions are, you know, like, noble or selfish, you understand why he's doing them. You understand, like, his motivations, and that's very important. Well, buddy Chip, been a while. Hasn't, who knew it was so hard to get across a few cities nowadays? That river, still so quiet, huh? She's actually been talkative at home and with Isabelle. I guess she's just not used to you. So I'm the bad guy here, huh? No, you're probably just doesn't know what to say to you. Like, that's one of my, like, problems conversation. Like, if I'm not talking to you, it's not that I think you're a bad guy, it's just, I have literally no idea what to say. Okay, there's just one more scene I want to talk about, and it's this one, and even just the beginning, then I think I'll call this quits. Everyone with it is different, John. Just because she and I share the syndrome doesn't mean we share the same head. But you must be able to help somehow. Everything was okay for us, but now she's even more aloof than before. Even when we're in the same room, she's never really there. It's starting to take a toll on me. I just don't know how to take it anymore. Well, I can't speak for her, but many of us do long for connections. Though being able to articulate it is a different story. Just because she struggles to express it, it doesn't mean she doesn't feel anything. She's still there, right? Sometimes you just have to have faith that she cares. That's pretty difficult to do day in and day out. I know. Wait, why do you seem so normal, Izzy? I mean, don't you have the same condition? For one, I was diagnosed when I was still young. With effort, it's not possible to acquire guise of social norms systematically. But you know what? I both envy and pity River. Me, I'm an actress because I've been doing it all my life. Now, not only on stage, but off stage, and at practically every moment. I've gotten good at it because acting is the only option I have. It's the only way for me to be normal. But River, she never did that. She remained an outcast and refused to learn to step against it. I don't know whether it was by choice or by limit, whether bravery or cowardice. There are days when I just can't stand faking it anymore. And then I realized that it's too late. The Isabel that people know of is all an act, and the real me has long become a stranger. I think in the end, I just envy her. Like, that's actually an interesting thing, because, yeah, that's a very real, like, fear and very real problem when it comes to being autistic, where the rest of the world, like, constantly expects you to, well, act a certain way, and some people with autism eventually learn to pass. To act normal and not, like, for many reasons. Like, a lot of therapy seems to have its main goal be passing it. You know, not actually, you know, making so autistic people, you know, live a quality life and are able to live the life they want, but no, to make them seem normal. Ugh. Like, the thing about, like, high-functioning, low-functioning autism is, well, it's a piece of shit, but they confuse the ability to pass with, well, functioning, honestly, because, like, I'm considered high-functioning, but that's just because I can pass as normal. I can pretend I'm not autistic, but quite simply, I don't want to fucking lie. Honestly, when I was younger, it honestly felt like, against the therapists I had, and the PTs and OT, well, actually my physical therapist was the best in that, so ignore that. Like, my OTs and some of my speech therapists, I felt like I had to fight against them in order to be myself. That's kind of fucked up. Like, my physical therapist, like, just did stretches and made me exercise, so out of all the therapies, he was the least problematic, since, well, I was a kid, I needed exercise. Anyway. But yeah, the thing about passing is that I don't want to do it. It's not something I should have to do. I should not have to pretend I'm normal. I shouldn't have to pretend that I'm not autistic. And honestly, I fucking refuse. Like, my family, like, they try to be supportive, but, well, pretty much everyone but my dad don't exactly do it in the best way. Like, everyone else, like, essentially, they've been trying to get me to pass because, well, I know that shouldn't matter, but you gotta be normal in order to get a job. Yada yada yada, it's all about employment, and quite simply, if a place of employment is not going to hire me because I act autistic, then, well, fuck that place, because, like, I know my limitations, I know what I can and can't do, and, like, I'm never gonna be, like, a cashier because of the social issue, because of my issues with social interaction and all that, but that shouldn't, like, interfere with my, like, even office job. Like, if I'm a data enterer, I shouldn't have to pass in order to get a job like that. And quite simply, I fucking refuse. Like, even if I have to work as a fucking bagger my entire life, I fucking refuse to lie. I fucking refuse to lie about who I am, and I refuse to lie to myself. I'm autistic, and there's nothing fucking shameful about that. Like, this is probably the most anger I've ever gotten, but that's just because people are fucking assholes, and I hate this defeatist mentality of, oh, the world sucks, so why try to change it? Like, you shouldn't get tattoos because you won't get a job, because you wanna know something? If you're worried about, like, getting tattoos on a job, like, I understand that could be a very real fear, but my recommendation is find a job that won't fire you for getting a tattoo. Like, I'm sure there's gonna be some asshole customers, but you can find a customer that's an asshole about anything. Or the people who get a tattoos, even if they may lose employment, because that's what they want to do with their life. And people who don't hide their autism because they shouldn't have to fucking hide it, don't fucking mock them for it. They're trying to make a better world, and whether or not think of work is quite, frankly, irrelevant because, well, what do you gain by telling them to stop trying to make the world better? Because you wanna know something? I'm gonna fucking do my damnedest to make the world a world I'm actually proud to live in. I can change minds. I can make the world a better place for autistic people. I can advocate. And so can everyone else. Like, there are a lot of fucking problems, a lot of things we need to fucking fix. And honestly, employment is one of the least troubling ones, but probably the one that'll affect the most people. Like, honestly, employment is probably one of the main ways, like, discrimination is the most, like, damaging, and the thing is, the people doing it don't think they're being discriminatory. Okay, I think that'll be all for gameplay, so why does To the Moon deserve to be on Terrific Thursday? Number one, great characterization. Like, the game is full of just such strong and memorable characters. Well, they carry the game, they make it interesting. They're the ones you want to see throughout the story. Next, the pacing is really well done. Like, no parts of the game feel like they drag, and no parts of the game feel like they're going too quick. Like as I've said, the pacing was partially helped because of, well, the many puzzles in the games, but just in general, the pacing is well constructed. Next, the music is beautiful. Like, just serene, and not only does it fit the mood of the game, it's just good music. Like, you can actually get the soundtrack bundle by spending $2.50 more on the game, which, well, that's a damn good price. I mean, the game itself is $10, and despite being an RPG Maker game, I'd say it's well worth the money. Like, not only is, like, the areas well constructed, but, well, the story is great as well, and even provides good bang for your buck at 5 hours for $10, which is not that bad. Like, the game is well worth the money. And finally, it's one of the most well-written autistic characters I have seen. Like, as I've said, autistic representation sucks, but it's actually pretty bad in games as well. Like, I actually looked for a list of autistic characters in video games. There were 7 in that list. Like, to my knowledge, there's actually might be one more, but I haven't actually played the game and I haven't been able to confirm it. Just, 8 out of all the games, 8 have an autistic character. And, like, to my knowledge, this is one of the only with an actual main character. Most are, like, secondary, like, very secondary characters. This is one of the only ones, where the autistic character is, well, important. Well, I suppose Twisted Metal, you could play as an autistic character, but Twisted Metal is not exactly where you go for, well, good portrayals of mental disability. But anyway, like, the writer avoids many of the pitfalls, presumably by, talking to autistic people to make sure, he didn't fuck it up. But still, it's well done, and, like, the writer, I'd say, is one of the good allies. I think that'll be all for today. Like, favorite, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.